I'm pretty sure out there somewhere, there's somebody who will tell you that out of every character that they've ever seen in One Piece, their favorite one is Kobe. Now, do I think that that person is the one running this show? No. Do I think that that person had something to do with this show? No. Do I think an actual psychopath is running this show? Yes. Kobe has got to be one of the most unequivocally blah type characters that deals with the beginning of One Piece. And that seems intentional considering what they do with his character later on when they do finally bring him back within the actual series. And for whatever reason, this series decided to squander that purpose that is highlighted and showcased with Kobe by making him a mainstay character that basically needs to get shown over and over and over again. Now, this is done as essentially a writing technique in order to shift focus on what is happening with the main titular characters. And it goes to show you exactly how terrible this series is written because of the fact that when they do cut to Kobe, it's usually nonsense or puff pieces being done that generally hold no weight to the actual story that is currently going on. It doesn't even help with the plot because it doesn't move it along either. It seems as if you could cut out every segment that they have with Kobe that they've shown within the later episodes as well as within the fourth episode, and the story would move just fine all on its own. Even when they had the moment where they took Luffy away, it seemed as though that could have been something where Nami was able to successfully hide Luffy, and then upon him being hidden, when he awoke, he happened to stumble across Zoro, who just happened to get out of the well. Again, not necessary to have Kobe, but because you constantly need to cut back to that character in order for you to reassess what you got going on with the other characters, because you're doing this like a typical bad TV show, you keep cutting back to him, but you don't know what to do with him because within the actual source material, he's not there. So within this adaptation, you keep force feeding us a person who should not be in this scenario when the scenario itself was written well enough to actually hold your attention throughout the entirety of what was going on. Even in the moments when they do take away focus from one incident to the other, it's done in a clever and wonderful way, or in a way that actually still retains your attention to the overall concept of what's going on. This is perfectly executed with the arc with when they first introduced Usopp, and they're dealing with Kuro, because you have Luffy fighting Kuro as well as the aftermath of Zoro fighting the Meow Band brothers, and then Zoro taking Usopp, who essentially is gravely injured after he finally stuck up to fight against real pirates, and he got himself really injured. And it was one of those moments where he proved himself, even though he's a coward and he was terrified and whatnot. He actually proved himself. You had all of those things working for you, and then essentially you had it to where him and Zoro are off trying to go help Kaya, who is being pursued by Django. So that was the cutaway. So you had Zoro and Usopp looking for Django, and Django going after Kaya, and then you had Luffy fighting Kuro. And that's it. That's all the attention that you needed to focus on what was going on, and that was all that retained with the characters. But when they keep constantly showcasing Kobe, you can tell that this is being done in a terrible way in order to just highlight and blow up the notion of him essentially trying to help Luffy, even though you're not developing him as a character, because again, this is very poorly written. So he's still the same timid, scared, and scrawny guy that's questioning everything, and it's just like really, like every time they show him on the camera, he's shaking, and you just gotta wonder, what the fuck, why would you do this? And then you essentially have him do things that are just odd and out of place and out of touch, and it's just, he's just such a sniveling coward, and it's like, god damn it, I want to punch him, but and it's sad because any type of growth that you essentially could have allowed Kobe to have, which is what he was supposed to have early on within the series, which is what Luffy kind of essentially inspired him to do, you squandered because you didn't allow him to have those moments. So now he has nothing. He's just that sniveling little loser who apparently just stumbled onto his dream without actually taking the step himself to fulfill it. You didn't give him that. So not only is he superfluous, but he's also just in a standstill. How how do you fuck up that bad? Like, just terrible. But that's not the only case of essentially just a multitude of character assassination going on within this series. Um, for whatever reason, Netflix has this tendency to hire a bunch of bad child actors. I didn't mention it on the last review, but the child actor who played Usopp was terrible, and the kid actors that they got to play younger Zoro and younger Kuina, just nothing. But yeah, it's the acting skills of the regular people in general, the adults in this series, are starting to show, as really a lot of them are very, very bad. It almost seems as if they're just phoning it in, like they not doesn't even feel like they're having fun being there, aside from like the main Straw Hat crew. But everyone else just kind of seems to be just they're going with the motions because there's nothing else to do other than someone directing them and telling them, yeah, now would be a good time for you to hiss. But why though? Because you're supposed to be a cat. Why am I a cat? Because you're part of the Black Cat Pirates. But it's just me, a fat guy, and Kuro. Really nothing to kind of help that theme get pushed along. So why would I hiss? Just hiss. Could you do that? And it's like, all right, there you go. And it just feels so empty. The whole thing just feels derived of any type of focus or any type of general care given to it. Because again, one of the reasons I had to stop actually reviewing this in terms of taking a step back and removing myself as a fan from looking at it is because I can't actually give any type of critique unless I speak upon it as a fan. Because if you were to look at this and you know absolutely nothing about One Piece, this would be a terrible show for you to watch because there's nothing that you can follow. There's nothing that would make any sense. You wouldn't pick up on anything because it all stems from prior knowledge to One Piece. And I keep saying this, and I'm gonna keep saying it because it is incredibly important. As it just, I keep focusing on it because it's like, yeah, this is hella necessary in order for this shit to make any sense. And it's sad that they wrote it this way, but then again, it's sad that they okayed this clusterfuck in the first place. Now, again, I should also reiterate, I refuse to believe that Ichiro Oda okayed any of the mess that was going on in this. But that being said, let me keep going. There have been so many different just terrible outcomes of character. I mean, hell, they had Kaya and Usopp kiss for some reason. And then they had it to where Usopp didn't even take that first step upon him finally manning up like he was supposed to against the pirates, and then finally taking that first step was literally the same thing that Kobe did, to become his own man and want to go his own way, that he decided to leave the village so that he could become a pirate. And then you just get the hilariousness of the fact that Luffy and the rest of them were like, well, you're already a part of our crew now, so yeah, like, get on the boat. And it's like, oh, and it's such a wonderful and wholesome moment because it's funny. It's very funny. But again, it's just wholesome in the sense of, like, to them, he was already one of them. And it's like the things that Usopp did and what he went through and all that they went through in the midst of dealing with the Black Cat Pirates led to them basically accepting him as one of them. And then that's where his journey begins, following Straw Hat Pirates. But again, much like with Kobe, you ruined that type of character development because you removed that aspect from actually happening. So now you have Usopp essentially held back by some type of weird weird concept of just wanting to take care of Kaya, like he has to, as if that's his job. even though that was never supposed to be their relationship in the first place. You know, you just kind of had Usopp staying in the village because he thought his father was coming back, and that being one of the things that he used as an excuse as to why he never actually nutted up and went out to sea on his own, because that added to the character of essentially that added to the character that is Usopp when it comes to his cowardness. And it was like that was one of those things that he got over when he finally fought against pirates, something that he's been screaming about coming to the village for the longest. And then when they finally did and no one believed him, he helped fight them off and save the village. And he didn't need anyone's help to do that. He did that. Well, I mean, he didn't need anyone's help to man up, I should say. He man up and did that. So then it allows him to progress. It allows him to develop as a person, which allows him to join the Straw Hats because he takes that first initial step. But in this, you just kind of have Luffy casually ask him to join and then mentions the fact that he's a sharpshooter. Even though none of that came into play with Luffy. You saw Usopp shoot corn with pans, and then you just were reminded of who Yasopp was. But that wasn't supposed to be the factor that allowed Luffy to bring Usopp on. It was who Usopp is that allowed Luffy that made Luffy want to bring Usopp onto the crew. And I don't like Usopp as a character, but even I recognize that concept of character development, which essentially is squandered because this series just generally have it to where Usopp is preparing to say goodbye to them, even though they're supposedly pressed for time within the current situation because you wrote that in the scenario, but yet they're still taking their time, slowly glancing and looking at shit and having fun along the way, when that doesn't make any sense because you wrote a time frame factor within your story, but your story is based off of something that does not have that element attached to it. Thus, the moment itself would be ruined because of the fact that you added this element that doesn't exist. And it ruins the actual concept of what it is that's going on within this moment of everyone just kind of standing around having their fun and whatnot. So overall, just everything is being done terrible and bad. But just to essentially put the icing on the cake, you actually have it to where Usopp in general, let me take a drink. But to put the icing on the cake, you essentially have it to where Usopp is still compliant in terms of leaving. Complacent in terms of leaving. He doesn't want to leave Kaya. He feels that he still needs to protect her and watch over her and whatnot. Even though the plan was revealed, she was actually poisoned. She's not really sick. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna get into that shit later. But you just have all that complacency that is supposedly holding Usopp back, and then you have Kaya just kind of tell him go. Just go. But again, that's not any type of development for Usopp. That's not him taking that step to get on that journey, because Usopp inspires Kaya to go on her journey, which allows her to want to become a doctor because she knows how great of a man Usopp actually is. She's one of the few people who can see greatness in him, despite the fact that he acts like a sniveling coward a lot. Again, you totally missed the fucking mark when it came to establishing that, and the only reason that you feel that essentially Usopp would even join the crew, despite the fact that you had all these elements going against him and not really allowing his character to develop, is because in One Piece, Usopp does join the crew. So again, as far as narrative goes, when you take out knowing what you know about One Piece as far as Usopp actually going with them, then this doesn't make any fucking sense because he has no reason to join them. You gave no opposition towards why he was didn't want to leave. You have nothing that you presented that essentially stopped Usopp from never leaving in the first place, or all of a sudden now wanting to leave. You gave nothing for that. You just decided, hey, join my crew. You're a good sharpshooter. Like, where the fuck does that come from? Why are you saying that? Why do you have in your pea brain that is something that needs to be said or needs to be done? You silly little boy. Oh, because it's not a job. Like, Usopp is a sharpshooter, but he's not the ship's sharpshooter. Usopp doesn't have a job. He's just Usopp. So this is, again, so much ruined by just negligence on just the simplest of concepts within their story. And I'm not done yet, because that's just a few of the characters that they have horribly massacred within this series. But I'm gonna get into more of these fucking character abominations that they've been doing within this show. Now, one of the dumber things that's done within this episode that just really doesn't make any fucking sense is the fact that they essentially had a plan, Kuro did, where they were slowly poisoning Kaya over this long period of time, essentially up to like fucking 3 years or so or whatever. But just it's been a long time coming of them slowly poisoning her so that eventually she would die upon her 18th birthday, and then he would claim her fortune or own her shipyard or whatnot. And this is unbelievably stupid because of the fact that it's like they were poisoning her, right? But then you have Kuro attack her with blades. And if essentially the plan itself was to be like that she passed because of her sickness, then I can understand that, but then there would be no justification as to why he would come after her with his blades. Um, but that's not what they did. You know, it was like they had him come after her with the blades, but it was like they were slowly poisoning her. So realistically, it's like, well, why didn't you just kill her? Again, you see, in regular One Piece, this plan is fucking foolproof because it makes absolute fucking sense. Kaya herself was just a sickly girl. It just added into the reason of her like listening to Usopp's stories because of the fact that she herself can't get out and do these adventures that he's making up. And then the duality of it is the fact that he's making up these stories even though he actually desperately wants to go out and have these adventures, but he really isn't. But essentially, again, you squandered all that because you're stupid. But now you denied the aspect of what Kuro's plan was, which again, like I said, was foolproof. Whereas that his crew of pirates attack the village and then kill Kaya in this in essentially the scuffle, which then leads to him inheriting everything because she died during that. But because you didn't do that, you had her getting poisoned, then it doesn't make any sense. The plan falls apart as soon as he starts chasing her with his fucking claw hands, because it's like, well, why would he do that? Why? She's already poisoned. Why didn't you just feed her stronger poison so that she would just croak now, regardless if it's the birthday party or not? You already know she has specially prepared meals. So and it's like, if everything is supposed to be done delicately before she turns 18 so that everything is put into order, why the fuck would you need to wait till it's exactly midnight in order for anything to come into play? You've killed the lawyer, who essentially would be the one that's in charge of like the estate and the paperwork and all that, but that's whatever. But you've killed the lawyer and it's like whoopity damn do. So why couldn't you have just killed her and then in the morning be like, well, last night Miss Kaya passed away, but because of statute of because of power of attorney, hey, everything's owned by me. Why did you need to wait until midnight? See, there's no reason behind that. Rather than within the original source material, he planned perfectly exactly when the pirates are going to come, and Usopp actually overheard the entirety of the plan. So then they prepared to stop it, which is what led into the ensuing battle. That's how that worked. That's actually a concrete story that fits everything in a nice tight little bow. So if all you needed to do was essentially give a reason as to why, well, let's say Kuro activated the little pirate guard shutters or something like that, and he had his crew on the outskirts rushing into the town and whatever, anything else than what it is that you did, because essentially it's like, well, you had him chasing her and he was using his claw hands only because in regular One Piece, that's what happens. Well, he doesn't chase her, but, you know, he got his claw hands and whatnot. And it was like, that's what happens. But with this, it just didn't make any sense. The same thing went for the actual fight scene that they had between Kuro and Luffy, where you put two characters that generally highlight their fighting skills in open areas by being in an enclosed room. Fuck, you wrote that. Like, you could have had them outside in the field or something like that, and you still could have generated the same distress that's supposed to happen within One Piece. You also could have added on to the element of what makes One Piece special in the fact that, yes, Kuro sees that Luffy has devil fruit powers, but it doesn't really bother him because they live in that world where shit like that happens. So he didn't do that either. But you know, far be it from me to tell you that you're thinking shite. But it's shite. Uh so again, Kuro's plan makes absolutely no fucking sense, and then it's actually like just derailed and derivative considering how many times they keep having incidents where he's doing stuff like in the previous episode where he wanted everything to be perfect, nothing could be messed up, not even a smudge on the glass, when that doesn't justify anything. The fact of him killing Mary, which again doesn't justify anything, because if Mary went ahead and already transferred papers, why would he now question it and then decide to talk to Kaya instead of first talking to her upon getting it from Kuro? She wants to give you everything if she was to die on her 18th birthday. That seems a little fucking odd. I should call her up and ask a question. Like, what the fuck? But I'm gonna wait until it's her birthday dinner party before I decide to actually figure out if this is what she wants to do. That's stupid. That just screams suspicious and negligence, by that matter. Rather than, and then you have him get attacked by Kuro because that's what happened in the anime. But realistically, when it happened in the anime, it was because Kuro was already at the notion of, well, my plan is gonna happen and you're gonna die, and I kind of want you dead, so I'm gonna do it. And that's it. So again, this show is so bogged down by the stupidity of the people who wrote on it because of the fact that, well, they don't really care how everything is presented. They said that they loved the story and that they cared for the story and they liked it and the characters and whatnot. Yet there's just irrefutable proof that in just huge increments that not only do they not care about the story, they don't care about the characters. They're totally fine with changing how characters act and their dynamics and whatnot. And then they completely miss the mark when it comes to actual moments that define a character, that justifies half of the shit that they do within the series that essentially you're trying to point out that's gonna come up later on. But it doesn't work because they never did the thing that they were supposed to do that makes them those people in the first place. God damn it. So another character is Zoro. So they finally showed his flashback because he was climbing out of a well, even though that also seemed goofy because why? I mean, hell, he was throwing up a rope in the beginning of the scene, and that was just really confusing because it had a hook at the end, and it's like, where the fuck did he get that? Because they did not throw him in a well with that. So where the fuck did he get that? And then he was struggling to climb up, and again, you are having a character that essentially is supposed to be like ridiculously strong, and they showcase and highlight different moments of feats of strength with this character, but then they essentially go, people can't do that, and then they just tone it down again whenever they feel that it fits whatever dumbass need they have for the story. So while he was in the well, you essentially got his backstory with Kuina, which is what defines Zoro. And rather than it coming up in the moment where he was about to face death in a situation where there was nothing he could do about it, which is what led to him deciding to join Luffy. Again, character development that was supposed to happen, that defines a character, that they completely removed because, you know, fuck you. Jesus Christ, like, I can't stress enough, just go out and watch the anime of One Piece, because this shit right here ain't worth nobody's time. But essentially, they had this flashback now, and it kind of just comes off as a weird moment that just focuses on Zoro too much because, again, his life isn't in any danger. He's just stuck in a well. He's constantly climbing and falling and whatnot, and it just seems like, yeah, it's a struggle or whatever. He's like constantly murmuring, we made a promise and whatnot. But again, the reason behind his flashback being shown the way that it was within the original source material was because he was about to die. And so then you got an understanding of exactly what it is and what it means to him to live in accordance to the dream that he's trying to accomplish. But now it's just more so like, well, this is another thing that they can cut back to, because when you cut back to Cody, that's just not enough filler for this bloated runtime that we have for episodes. So Zoro's backstory. Ugh. And then you go into Zoro's backstory, and again, bad child actors. Damn it. They just pick bad kid actors. But you don't really get the impact of Zoro's backstory, because Zoro's backstory is fairly short but sweet. It's short and sweet in the fact that it's like it's something that's an easy. It's just a one-two punch in terms of dealing with what it is that he wants, what it is he's working towards, and what he's trying to do. One, two, that's it. But it carries so much weight behind it because it comes with the determination that you see throughout his character as the series progresses. For whatever reason, this series keeps trying to paint him like a Sasuke ripoff, so he's just emo, and emo only has the emotion that is the emotion of emo. And it just does not work for his character because that's not who he is. And then they're also trying to essentially push a concept that appears later on within the series that's justified by Zoro's actions by claiming that he's a demon or whatnot. But this is also negative towards the fact that he was hunting pirates, because he was hunting pirates just so he can get money for food, and this is a nickname that's stuck. But in this series, for whatever reason, they're making it to where like he cares about collecting bounties, as if that it even makes a lick of sense for something that his character would even want to do. But again, like I said, huge aspects of character assassination. But you got his backstory with Kawina, and it was kind of done in a very lackluster way. Sadly enough, I feel that the acting from the children was bad, but also just the dialogue choices. It was certain things that they said that was just like, ugh. Only thing that I did like though was that a girl can beat a boy, but a woman can never beat a man. I was like, whoever wrote that had some stank on it. Like, they felt some kind of way. A woman could never beat a man. I was like, that hurt. But then just to have the response from the actor that played Zoro just kind of be such a, who cares about all that? It just didn't. It just didn't right. It just didn't right. You could have did better. You should have did better. And it honestly, I felt like that dialogue choice was just a nah. Now, you could be like, well, that's similar to what actually he says from the series. Yeah, but when she dropped a line like that, I felt as if they could have gave some more emotional weight behind Zoro's response, especially considering that this is supposed to be a response that allows her to understand his feelings towards the whole idea of becoming a swordsman and what he thinks about her. Because it also is a justifiable character trait with Zoro, as he does not discriminate between men or women when he's fighting. He does this a lot. So having it to where essentially his response would have been far more emotional in terms of, I don't understand what you're talking about because I just see you. You are who I considered strong. It has nothing to do with being a woman or a man. Kawina is who it is that I wish to defeat. But again, it squandered. And it seems like a huge thing going on within this series. But again, this was written by morons. Just straight up morons. How could you fuck up this bad? The story is already the story. Just copy it. That's all you have to do. Just copy it. Ugh. But aside from Kobe essentially doing incredibly dumb, stupid stuff where he's just standing around shivering like a leaf at every single dialogue option that pops up in front of him, you then just have him be this annoying concept where it's like, okay, you have a cadet and another cadet with two armed Navy officers looking for your supposed nephew that you brought an entire fucking ship for. Well, I said nephew, I meant grandson. That you brought an entire fucking ship to find. Why are they by themselves? And if you believe that Kobe is capable of tracking down Luffy for any extent, why would you only give him this, like, just two guards? You or someone who's capable of training, like, this is going from a fandom perspective now. This is going from like me knowing about who Garp is. You trained Luffy to become a Marine. Like, so you know exactly what training he went through. Kobe is a straight up cabin boy. Like, he just used to be a cabin boy. Now he's a cadet. Ain't got no type of experience of fighting under his belt whatsoever. You know what Luffy's capable of, and you know that he ate the gum fruit. Why the fuck are you sending him and Helmeppo to go find Luffy with two armed guards? Why would you think that that would actually make any sense? Why isn't your second in command following them? Why don't you have another team following them? Why don't you have them have radio so they can basically contact you as soon as they find them? Or their orders are, if you are to find Straw Hat Luffy, contact me. That way, you can actually have moments of essentially making your plot make sense, or make your plot connect together correctly, as while they're waiting for Garp to show up, other shit is happening. And essentially you kind of get that forebodance of like, yeah, if they don't hurry up and finish this shit with Kuro soon, when Garp shows up, they're gonna be in trouble. And then by the time Garp gets to the house, they're already at the shipyard preparing to leave. And then it's too late. And then there you go. Well, that won't track with the next episode, because the next episode is blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'm talking about this episode and what they should have done to actually make it a coherent story. Because I keep saying that, and I don't like the fact that I keep saying that, because this thing is fucking nonsense. You can't follow any of this unless you know One Piece. How bad of a writer do you have to be to where literally the only thing that holds your story together is your audience prior knowledge to some shit that you're supposed to be adapting? How fucking, you have any idea how fucking crazy that sounds? If you want to make sure that this movie makes sense, if you're watching a movie and in order for that movie to make sense, you have to have read the book that this movie is based off on. What? Why can't I just watch the movie? Nah. They you see, the people who wrote this movie were it's fucking retarded. And so again, now you are squandering the concept of a vice admiral, because at this point in time we haven't seen the power of an admiral yet. So there is no balance in that, in terms of an association or a reference of how strong and how powerful Navy officers could be or should be. And because you haven't had this moment, the idea of bringing up the hero of the Navy, Garp, someone who was tackled with Gold Roger and lived to tell the tale, being someone that shows up early on in the East Blue and then already give away the twist that it's Luffy's grandfather so early on, diminishes the weight that comes behind the title of admiral, or vice admiral for that matter, because the vice admiral currently is wasting time hunting his grandson who hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't done nothing to be note or to be worthy of the Navy's ire. So why exactly are you coming after him? I'm pretty sure all will be revealed in a stupid way in the next episode, but still, considering your position in the Navy, who you are, what power you hold, the fact that this is something that you're trying to invest a majority of your time on when you were actively investigating a secret organization makes no sense. There's no justification behind it. Now waiting for the next episode to say anything doesn't change the fact that it's still fucking stupid. Dude putting in nothing but man hours just to find Straw Hat Luffy. Straw Hat Luffy who doesn't even have a goddamn bounty yet. Dude, what the fuck? It's not like you were more than capable of going to get your grandson anytime you wanted, or that you would have some misgivings about looking for red-haired Shanks, because red-haired Shanks is known as the red-haired pirates. And at this point in time within One Piece, if you've been paying attention to the actual story and the source material, Shanks is one of the four emperors. They know where he is at all times. They know what he's doing. He's a force to be reckoned with. So if he's after Luffy because he confuses him for Shanks, that's stupid. So, you dumb, idiotic fucks. Again, all of your problems could be solved if you just paid attention to what the story is. And then also, you weren't a shitty writer. But yeah, if you just paid attention to the story, all of your problems would have been solved. Because what you're putting together just does not make any sense. This dog don't hunt. It can't hunt. It won't hunt. I can't rack my brain around you would make so many unbelievably stupid concepts brought up within your story, especially the story that's supposed to be an adaptation, when literally, just like with Cowboy Bebop, because this is just like Cowboy Bebop. You are making up concepts, different iterations, different altercations to characters that do nothing. This doesn't gain anything with the character. You don't get nothing else from this perspective of this character. All that you're doing is taking away from what exactly it is that makes these characters special. You're recognizing the moments for them being special moments, because later on it might get highlighted or brought up again as special moments, but you're not understanding what made that moment special, which again comes from the fact of just because you watch One Piece don't mean you know what the fuck you're talking about. And I would say that for someone to essentially believe that they're a fan and then they did what they did to this and to say that they are a fan and whatnot, you should have consulted somebody else in terms of making sure that this shit actually made sense, because it doesn't. Did you read this to somebody who hasn't seen One Piece before? So then they'd be like, what? Why did they go from there to there? How did they get there so quickly? Why the fuck would Kuro be looking for Kaya in the mansion if he knows exactly where she is? You already stated earlier within the earlier within the episode that essentially they locked her in the room, so you know she's in her room. But then you have him stealthily walking about the mansion slowly while calling out her name in a creepy manner. She doesn't know that he's trying to kill her yet. And also, he's fast as shit. And if he wants to get this thing over with, why won't he hurry up and get it over with? There's no sense of him actually being cruel and misgiving or trying to prolong her suffering or anything like that, because if that was the case, then you should have had him say something on that level. But instead, you just had him upset at the fact that he was a butler for all these goddamn years. He's pissed off and he wants to hurry up and kill her. Yet you have him doing the slowest dumb shit imaginable. Then you also had Sam and Butchie running around, Sham and Butchie running around the mansion also looking for him. But yet, when, again, they all know that she's in one particular location, but then these two assholes are just around the mansion. They're not doing anything. They're just in the mansion. And then somehow they just stumbled across Zoro. I guess. Fucking idiots. It's like this shit was written by a 3-year-old. After he got hit by a bus. And he's like, give me the pen. You can't move your index finger, Jonathan. I got it. You sound like an old man, Jonathan. Yay, juice boxes and apple cores. Fuck, this is bad. This is just so unbelievably bad. Do you not understand how little sense you make? How just unbelievably dumb you have everything? And to end this review, with the icing of the cake of the episode, is that essentially you finally have Garp show up and then Luffy sees him and calls out Grandpa. Then it's like, Grandpa? But again, that moment is kind of squandered because you don't really have the aspect of knowing he's a vice admiral, he's the hero of the Navy, he's literally a Navy officer that they just can't fuck with. And at this point in time, he's the last person that they should ever want to see. And then when it's revealed that it's actually Luffy's grandfather, it's just that much funnier because it's a hilarious part of One Piece and it's great, it's fantastic, I loved it. But now you had Luffy essentially associate him as Grandpa. But then this actually completely goes against what was stated earlier when he was with Shanks in the flashback on episode 2? Episode 2 or 1, where Beckman actually came up to him and was like, come on, take it easy on the lad. You know he ain't got no family to speak of. But if we know Luffy as a grandfather, then that line is now a contradiction. And then if it's a contradiction, we all know what that means. Everything you just previously said is now fucking stupid. So, that's the show I'm dealing with. That's what I'm currently looking at. And I got fucking 4 more to go. I'm only halfway there. Halfway there. And oh my goodness, I wish it was over with. This is so bad. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. This is just unbelievably bad. It is so desperate in its need to try and corrupt and twist the source material to fit whatever dumbass fan fiction that it has, that it can't even see past its own hubris as to how its material can't make sense without the source material. I have to reinstate that because it's such a glaring issue on just the basic of ideas. You don't need to reinvent the wheel with this. You just need to push it. And for some reason, these assholes pushed the wheel on its side and turned it into a square. And I can't roll with that. No, he didn't. No, he didn't just end on a pun. Are you fucking crazy? You out of your damn mind, boy? A pun.